So welcome back all of you, and we are going into the last session of this workshop, that is manuscript writing and communication. So I'm sure all of you got at least the basic understanding from yesterday about the systematic review and meta-analysis. And in the afternoon sessions yesterday, so we have clearly understood about the literature search, how to search in various databases, and how to collect the articles which we require based on the criteria, inclusion and exclusion criteria. And then we have seen, once we have all the articles with you, we have seen how to extract the data. As Raju mentioned, there are some softwares even for that data extraction, but it's always better you can have your own data extraction sheet with you, so that you can include whatever you want the information there, and you can have that information with you. And once you have the extraction and once you done the quality assessment, then we are going to be do an analysis, especially for the development of the forest plots and coming out with the pooled information and the funnel plot and all other analysis, whatever Richard explained just now. So we are going to perform all those things. So done. Let's say that you have done everything. OK, so you already done a systematic review starting from all the steps. So you have completed till the analysis. The next part is going to be we need to write a manuscript for the communicating to the journal for the publication purpose. Today I'm going to just show you. I think before that, I'm just to make an announcement for this session. We had a speaker from JSS Medical College, Dr. Praveen Kulkarni. Because of unavoidable reasons, he could not be able to join today, and that's the reason I thought I can take it up this session. Anyway, I had some publications about systematic review meta-analysis. I thought I can show you one of my publication of a manuscript of my publication, just to give you some glance about how a manuscript looks like of a systematic review and meta-analysis. And what I'm going to show you today is just a template, and that's a very standard format of a systematic review meta-analysis. And I don't say that all the systematic review should be like this only. OK, there may be many other ways you can see how they express a systematic review, but this is one of the basic way, standard way of expressing the systematic review in terms of the manuscript. So I'll just show it to you so that you can have that in mind, and later on maybe you can add many other additions and deletions based on your hypothesis what you are having. OK, so here I'm going to show you the manuscript which we have done long back on statin use and risk of breast cancer. It's a meta-analysis of observation studies. And you may ask me the question, why it is only observational, why not randomized control trials? At that time, we realized that whenever your outcome is something is a safer issue, safety issue, may not be the efficacy. For example, the breast cancer. I don't think so any researcher may be interesting to find out is a statin is going to be cause of breast cancer, right? So always they will try to see for any medication, something is going to be prevent. So always they will try to express in terms of the efficacy, may not be in terms of the safety, especially by using the randomized control trials. And that's the reason whenever your outcome is something is about the safety issue, it's always better to go with the observational. If you have RCTs, you can also include them, but most of the information we are going to be get from observation studies, and that's the reason we have included here only the observation studies. And also when we searched, we did not get any studies, RCTs specifically conducted, specifically designed only for this purpose, only for this hypothesis. So that's the reason we have included only the observation studies like cohort studies and the case control studies. And maybe this basic structure, it's going to be depending upon the journal where you are sending. They will give you the template, and based on the template, maybe you can mention all these things about the authors and all other information. I'm just showing you the content wise. Just note it down on only the content. Don't bother about the structure, because that may be depending upon the journal what you are going to be select. So coming to the abstract, the first part is going to be the abstract of any article. And as I mentioned yesterday, systematic reviews sometimes more than the research. So because it is going to be have its own introduction, it is going to be have the objective, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion. So what are the parts we are going to be see in the research article, the same parts, the same subheadings we are going to be see even in the systematic review. So if you see in the abstract, we just mentioned why we have conducted this study, the background information. So we just mentioned even though there are studies, but there is a conflicting information which is existing from the already available studies on the breast cancer. And that's the reason we have conducted this particular systematic review, just to understand the impact of statin on the breast cancer. So for this reason, we have searched only the PubMed database. Maybe I think by this you can understand, no, at least one database also is fine, and PubMed should be the one. If you're using only one, that should be the PubMed. So because PubMed we should not miss at any case. It is freely available and having lots of resources, and almost all the articles you are going to be get from the PubMed, at least the standard articles. And apart from that, maybe you can use Google Scholar and any other database based on the availability to you and based on the university subscription. And then we mentioned till what date we have searched. We searched all the articles till January 2012, and then we have conducted the meta-analysis, and also we have seen the publication bias, and then we have mentioned about the result section. So we got a total of 24 articles. Out of this, 13 are cohort study designs and 11 are case control study designs, and including this 2.4 million participants. So that's what I mentioned, the advantage of a meta-analysis or systematic review. If you see any one study or two studies, it may have the limited number of participants. Because I combined 24 studies on this issue, and this is an article which is going to be explained about the population of 2.4 million participants. So when the population number is increasing, obviously the precision of the results what we're going to be get is going to be increased, and that's an advantage of the systematic review and a meta-analysis. And then we explained about the results. Maybe I'll show you in detail in the text rather than the abstract, all this. And finally, we can give our own conclusion here at the end of the abstract. So actually, there should be some subheadings under the abstract also, like introduction, objective, methodology, results, and the discussion. We just mentioned as a paragraph because it is a format given by this journal, particular journal where we communicated this. And that's the reason we mentioned like this. Otherwise, usually there will be some subheadings even for the abstract. And followed by we can have some keywords, and then we can have the introduction. So the next important point is going to be the introduction in a manuscript. And the general introduction, the basic introduction for a meta-analysis is going to be always, I think for any systematic review, we are going to have mainly two things. One is about the disease condition, and another one is about the medication. Most of the times, if it is an intervention review, usually we are going to have a disease condition and or maybe the outcome of any intervention. So here the two major things for this systematic review is the breast cancer and the statin use. And that's the reason in the first paragraph, we have clearly explained about a breast cancer. So what is breast cancer and what's the prevalence of it, how it is spreaded throughout the world and some other countries. So we mentioned some basic introduction about the breast cancer in the first paragraph of the manuscript under the introduction. And the second one is we have given a separate paragraph about the statins. What are the statins and what purpose we are using currently, and how it is linked with the cancers, the general cancers, how it is linked with the breast cancer. So that's what we explained about clearly in the second paragraph about the statins. And the third paragraph is going to be why we have conducted this particular meta-analysis and systematic review. What's the importance of conducting this systematic review? So here we mentioned, you can see already there was a study. I think this is one more important question maybe I can address here. If you feel already there is a meta-analysis on the topic what you selected, still can we do it? Yes, of course we can do it because you can see already there was a meta-analysis on this topic by Bonwas, and which was published in 2005. And after 2005, we have seen there are 7 RCTs and 9 observation studies published between 1993 to 2005, and that's what they have included. They have included total 7 RCTs and 9 observational studies because they have taken the articles between 1993 to 2005. And what we searched, when we searched, what we got to know is after this Bonwas et al. Publication in 2005, and we found that there are many other observational studies published after 2005, which are having the contrasting results with the Bonwas study results. That means whatever the results we got after the Bonwas study are not exactly matching with the Bonwas results. And we felt that we can update this particular systematic review so that we can get more up-to-date information on the statin use and risk of breast cancer. And we clearly mentioned that why they're contrasting. So we got to know that there are some studies which are showing decreasing risk of breast cancer with the statins. And there are some studies which are showing increased risk of breast cancer with the statins, and some of them they reported there is no probable association between the statin use and risk of breast cancer. So I think there will be one more question. What will be the right hypothesis for a systematic review? So the right hypothesis, it should be like this. So whenever you go and study on any topic, you feel that there are lots of articles on the topic, but there are some contrasting results between the studies itself. There are some studies showing association, there are some studies showing no association. And if you feel the results are like that, contrasting each other, maybe that may be the right hypothesis to take it up for conducting the systematic review and meta-analysis. So always that's going to be the better. So otherwise, what is going to happen is, let's say you have 10 studies and all the 10 studies are giving positive association with a marginal difference between the results. Okay, so in that case, if you pool all the 10 studies by using a meta-analysis, you are going to get almost the same result once again. So there is no meaning in conducting a systematic review in that case. I'm not saying that we should not do it, but there is no meaning in doing the systematic review there or meta-analysis there when the results from existing studies all are giving the same information, and the final information what you are going to be get from the systematic review is going to be same once again. So there is no use in that. So whenever there are manuscripts which are existing, publications which are existing, and which are giving some contrasting results, maybe in that case we can go and do the systematic review and meta-analysis. So that's what we have mentioned, why we have performed the particular systematic review meta-analysis as a last paragraph. That's a need of the study that we have mentioned as a last paragraph of the introduction. Coming to the important part of the manuscript, that's the materials and methods. There we need to clearly explain what kind of methodology we have performed, and here we are going to have some clear-cut subheadings. Under each subheading, we are going to be explain about what we have done for the systematic review and meta-analysis. So the first one is going to be the search strategy here, and that's what the first step we have seen yesterday afternoon by Vasumati ma'am. She explained very clearly how to search for the information in various databases by using various keywords, including the mesh terms, right? So here I think this is a very simple way of explanation, but some journals may not accept this, where we need to give a clear-cut such strategy, like how Vasumati ma'am explained yesterday. There's a clear-cut step-by-step such strategy. So sometimes when journal asks you that, we need to provide that one, not the simple such strategy how we mentioned here. Okay, so that's based on the general requirement. If they require, you need to provide the in detailed such strategy. So we mentioned that what are the search terms we have used, and maybe here you can see like we have used all the synonyms for statins, and then we have combined it with all the synonyms of the cancer. And we did not say particularly about the breast cancer. We mentioned about all the cancers. So in that particularly we have selected about the breast cancer. And then the articles we have selected from 1966 through January 2012. So you may ask why it should be only from 1966. And from that date onwards, all the Medline articles are available in the PubMed. And that's the reason we have selected this date. So if you're not selecting the date also, obviously you're going to get the articles which are published after January 1966. And this one is going to be your last day of search, when you have done the last search on what day, and that's we are going to be mentioned here. And the limitations we have applied here is humans. So we would like to have the studies only the humans. If you apply the limitation in the left hand side of the PubMed, you can see the various limitations. So even though you get lakhs of articles, if you just apply some limitations, so you're going to be reduce the number of items, number of citations. So we have applied the limitations of English as well as the humans. So we could have reduced the number of studies which we got after the search. And also we mentioned we have manually searched in some of the conference proceedings of the organizations called American Society of Clinical Oncology and American Association of Cancer Research. So we found that these are the two important organizations used to conduct the conferences every year. And in those conferences, there may be some interesting articles on this issue. Because they are available only in the abstract form, we may not get all these abstracts in the PubMed. That's the reason we mentioned that we have separately gone to these websites and searched for the abstracts related to or relevant to the statin and breast cancer. So that's what we clearly mentioned about search, where we have searched and what are the search terms we have used clearly. And the next comes search selection criteria. After you are searching for the articles from various databases, what criteria you are going to be follow for selecting the articles. for inclusion and exclusion. So there we clearly mentioned that we have included only the observational study designs like cohort or case control studies, and where the exposure is a statin and they have such for the breast cancer risk. So that's what we have mentioned very clearly. And then we have mentioned how it should be done and what kind of information should we need to get from the articles. So that's what we have mentioned under the selection criteria. So we need to clearly mention the inclusion and exclusion criteria here under the selection criteria. And the data extraction and quality assessment. So once you select the articles, the next step, the step 2 is going to be the data extraction and quality assessment. And we clearly mentioned that there are 2 authors who independently perform the reviewing the articles, data extraction and the quality assessment. And we clearly mention here what kind of data, the important data we have extracted from each and every study, like author details, publication details, study design, and number of patients, the related risk estimate, and 95% confidence interval. So it is not the standard. It depends upon your outcome. So what is going to be your outcome? Because here our outcome is the risk of breast cancer. That's the reason we have taken only the relative risk estimates or the odds ratio estimates or the hazard ratio estimates. If your outcome is something about continuous variable, as Richard was explaining, in that case, we need to even take the mean standard deviation and all other values we are going to have from the publication. So this data extraction, no one can give you the standard template for this, because it is going to be completely depending upon what kind of articles you are getting and what kind of information you are getting from the article. So you need to create your own data sheet for extracting the data. So I'm not sure, I realized yesterday only, even though in the title we mentioned quality assessment, but there's no paragraph we have given here about the quality assessment. I don't know, we could have missed it a long time we have done it, so we could have missed it. I think I observed that yesterday itself. And coming to the statistical analysis, the very important paragraph we need to mention under the methodology. So under the statistical analysis, we are going to be explain each and everything what just now the Richard explained to us. Okay, so we need to clearly mention all those things under the statistical analysis. So we have mentioned about the publication bias, how exactly we have come out with the information on the publication bias by conducting what are the different tests, and how exactly you are going to be understand the heterogeneity between the studies. So we mentioned that we have conducted 2 statistics for that, Cochrane Q test and I-square statistic. And we clearly mentioned when we are going to be say there is a heterogeneity. So we say that when the value of I-square is more than 50%, we consider them it as a heterogeneity. And we have taken primary measure was a combined relative risk. So we have combined all the relative risk or odds ratios from the studies, and then we have combined them to get the pooled or combined relative risk of the breast cancer from individual studies. And then we mentioned clearly that we have used a random effect model whenever we accounts for the heterogeneity. So whenever there is a heterogeneity between the studies, in that case we use a random effect model. Otherwise it is going to be the standard is going to be the fixed effect model. That's what one of the question people were asking. So by default you are going to be used for any forest plot, by default you are going to be use a fixed effect model. And once you've done that, the moment if you see there is a heterogeneity, like I-square value is more than 50% and p-value is less than 0.10, and in that case we are going to be immediately change the model to the random effect model. So the default is going to be fixed effect, and if you feel there's a heterogeneity, then we can change it. I think there's no difficulty in changing. You can click just a button, it's going to be changed automatically to the random effect model. And then we mentioned about the test for interaction. That's what I was explained yesterday in my presentation. Test for interaction is just to understand, especially when you perform a subgroup analysis, you're going to be get 2 different results for 2 subgroups, right? And if you want to understand, is there any significant difference between those 2 results, which are coming from 2 subgroups? In that case, we are going to be explain the test for interaction. We are going to be calculate the test for interaction. And we need to also mention very clearly what kind of software we have used for this purpose, for having all this analysis and coming out with the forest plots, funnel plots, and all those things. Which kind of software we have used, we need to mention that very clearly, including with the version number and also giving some reference information. So we need to mention all those things. And if you use a Revimen, you can also mention you have used a Revimen, and the current version of the Revimen is going to be 5.4. You can mention all those things very clearly in the statistics. So that's about different statistics we have used. Apart from the Cochrane Q test p-value, where the cutoff is going to be 0.10, and for all other tests, we have taken p-value as a standard p-value that is less than 0.05. That's what we have mentioned here. And coming to the what kind of analysis we have performed here, and we first estimated the risk of breast cancer in statins users compared with the non-users. And also what we have done is, apart from general understanding about statins and breast cancer, based on the information available from the articles what we got, we have also seen the association between long-term statin use with the breast cancer. So we have there are some studies which are explaining specifically, and also having some additional information that when the people are taking the statins for a longer time, how much risk is there to get the breast cancer. So we have taken those results separately and then done the meta-analysis once again, and also statin use and breast cancer reoccurrence risk. So there's one more parameter which is available in the available studies. So we did not restrict only with the statin use and breast cancer. Based on the availability of the information from the articles, even we have done some more analysis, which we felt more useful if you explain in the same manuscript. Okay, so what we have done is we also identified the statin use and breast cancer reoccurrence risk. So how much chance is there to get the reoccurrence of the breast cancer? We explained that. And also we explained about various other subgroup analysis. So obviously for any systematic review, subgroup analysis is going to be the very important one. No one will ask you to perform this, and this is going to be your decision. I think that will come obviously based on your understanding about the subject. So once you've done everything, if you feel there are some laggings, maybe if you feel that, okay, what are the result finally we got, I think it is biased because I combined various study designs. And if you feel what are the final result what we got, it is biased because I combined the studies which are coming from different countries. They're not from same countries. So if you feel that there is some influence of factors on the overall effect, in that case, you can go and do the subgroup analysis by dividing all the studies into 2 or 3 different groups, and then you can show the results separately so that people will get more understanding from your systematic review and meta-analysis. So that's the reason what we have done is we have done a subgroup analysis here based on the study design. We have divided them into cohort studies separately and case control studies separately, and we have shown the final conclusion for these 2 different types of study designs. And the control of confounding factors. The confounding factors will be there in almost all the studies. It is like, apart from the statin, are there any other factors are influencing the breast cancer? Certainly there will be many other factors. It is not that when the people are taking the statin, they are getting the breast cancer only because of statin. Okay, there may be many other factors will be there which are going to be influence the breast cancer. So they need to identify those confounding factors. That's going to be happen. It is not going to be happen with a systematic review. That is going to be happen when the original people are doing the research. They need to identify all those factors and they need to adjust all those factors. That's what is called as confounding adjustments. So what we have seen is we have divided the studies into 2 categories where more than or equal to 8 confounding factors are adjusted, and where there are studies having less than 7 or equal to 7 confounding factors adjusted. So we have done that. And also one more interesting subgroup analysis we have done is we have divided the studies into 2 different groups once again. What are the studies conducted before Bonavas et al. Study, the previous meta-analysis on the same topic, and the studies conducted after the Bonavas et al. Study. I think it's a very interesting subgroup analysis. We made it just to understand what of the Bonavas et al. Study came in 2005. Is it made any changes in the results of the conclusion of other studies, and how the other studies results are there after publishing this particular systematic review. So we thought of understanding that. That's why we have performed this particular subgroup analysis. I'll show you the results. I think it will be very interesting. And also we mentioned, so these are subgroup analysis we have done. And also we mentioned that we have done the sensitivity analysis and also the cumulative analysis. I think I'm not explaining these 2 terminologies in detail now, because you can learn those things when you start exactly doing the meta-analysis, sensitivity analysis and cumulative meta-analysis. We have done that. And finally, we mentioned that whatever the meta-analysis we have conducted, we have followed this particular checklist for this, a meta-analysis of observational studies in epidemiology. That is nothing but the MOOS checklist what I mentioned yesterday. So I could have used Prisma if I have taken RCTs, because I have taken the observation studies here. That's the reason I have taken this most as a checklist for this particular systematic review, meta-analysis of observation studies in epidemiology. So that's what about the clear-cut methodology. I think we have touched upon all the aspects of the methodology very clearly. So I think the acceptance of the article is going to be mostly depending upon how much clear you have explained whatever you have done in your manuscript. If you explain them very clearly, don't bother that it's a very silly point to mention in the manuscript. That I think you don't need to decide that. Maybe reviewer will decide that. Mention each and everything what you have done, and make sure that no, you are not exceeding the word limit as well. If I say mention everything, you should not mention them. You should not keep the manuscript without 10,000 words or 15,000 words. Certainly, it should be within the limits of the manuscript guidelines. So we need to follow that. But with that, within the limits only, you need to explain very clearly about all the things whatever you have done. So that's about the methodology. Coming to the results, here we have once again various subheadings, starting from the search results. Like we need to clearly explain once you search in the PubMed and other databases, how many citations initially you got and how you have excluded the studies which are not relevant for you, and how many you have included as a full text. After reading the full text, how many you have excluded, and finally how many studies you are having in your manuscript and systematic review. So all those things we are going to be explained very clearly, and for the same purpose, always in a systematic review we are going to have the figure for that. The flowchart is going to be there. Usually that's going to be the figure 1 for any systematic review and meta-analysis. So I'll show you that figure so that you can understand better. And coming to the next subheading is study characteristics, where we have explained once again out of all the 24 studies we have included, how many are cohort, how many are case control, and from which date to which date they have published, and total how many people they have included, how many females and the other people, and among all the people they have included, how many people are having the breast cancer. So all those numbers we are going to be, these are the combined numbers from all the studies. We have mentioned very clearly those numbers here under the study characteristics. And then we separately given, I think, 2 more detailed paragraphs about this is a separate paragraph about the cohort studies. We have explained in detail about all the numbers, and this is a separate paragraph about the case control studies. Once again, we explain in detail about all the studies comes under the case control. And by combining of all the 24 studies, 14 were population based and 10 are hospital based. We have given some more information about all the studies what we have included. I think these are some basic descriptions of all the studies, and that's going to be introduce the audience whenever they're reading your article. They no need to go back to all these 24 articles. They should get a crisp and important information from all the 24 studies in your manuscript only. So that's the reason we have included some of the important details in the manuscript as a first part of the result section. And further, there are 10 studies were reported relative risk estimates of the association between the long term. That's what I mentioned there. So we have also taken some information from all the 24 studies. There are 10 studies which are having the information on long term statin use and risk of the breast cancer. So we have taken those 10 studies and done the separate analysis for that. And there are 2 studies out of 24 only. There are 2 studies which gave the information on examination of statin use in relation to the breast cancer reoccurrence. As I mentioned, we have done 2 more separate analysis. One is for the long-term statin use and risk of breast cancer, and another one is breast cancer reoccurrence after using the statins. Okay, so we have done 2 more analysis by taking the information from the same 24 studies. So that's what we have. I think clearly we have explained about the various important aspects of all the studies as a first part of the results. So then we are going to be explain about the main analysis information. So that's a heart of the results. We are going to be explaining about what we got out of all the studies after conducting the analysis, what exactly we got the information from all the studies. So you can see clearly we explained initially about the publication bias by keeping the p-values, and then we mentioned about because there is a significant heterogeneity. So we got the heterogeneity first, that we understood by having the Cochrane p-value less than 0.001, as well as the I-square test, it is more than 50%, that is 57%. So we got to know that there is a heterogeneity, and because of that reason, we have performed the random effect model here, and finally we got to know that the statin use did not significantly affect the breast cancer. So that's what we have written in the results part. So why we mentioned that? Because we got the pooled relative risk as 0.99 and 95% confidence interval as 0.94 lower limit and 1.04 as a upper limit. The same thing I was explained yesterday. So we got 0.99, it's almost near to the 1, and even the confidence interval found to be non-significant. And that's the reason we mentioned that we did not identify any significant association between statin use and risk of breast cancer. So that's what about the main analysis information, like from the first forest plot of combining all the 24 studies. Whatever the information you got from this first forward plot, we are explaining very clearly in the main analysis. And coming to the one more subheading, that is a subgroup analysis, sensitivity analysis, and the cumulative analysis. So we have done various other analysis. All those things we explained under this heading. So once again, headings I'm mentioning because we have just written under each heading. We felt that it's going to be very clear for the audience to read it. But headings, it is not that all the journals are going to be accept the headings based on the journal what you're selecting. Sometimes we should not have any headings, even though there are no headings, but you can choose your own headings, even though they are not there, but you can explain the information in a separate paragraphs so that it's going to be very clear to the audience. And about the subgroup analysis, we mentioned all those things information. I think I'm not going to explain all those things to you. Maybe I can show you the direct table. So this is about the other analysis, whatever we have performed. And we understood the robustness of the findings, whatever the findings we got, either they are the robust or not. For that reason, we have performed the sensitivity analysis. You just keep in mind about the sensitivity analysis and this particular cumulative analysis. These two we have performed especially by using the CMA, that's a comprehensive meta-analysis software, and where we can understand in-depth understanding about all the articles information. So just keep in mind, I'm not going to explain those things to you today. Maybe one day you can learn those things also once you have some at least some basic understanding about the systematic review and meta-analysis. And as I mentioned, apart from all this analysis, we have also done some two extra analysis here. That is just to try to understand what is the impact of long-term statin use on the breast cancer. So we have explained that result here in this paragraph. And also we have done one more analysis, try to understand what's the chance of getting the reoccurrence of breast cancer when the people are using the statins. So that we have explained here once again in the particular paragraph. So that's what about the results. I feel it's very clear. So whatever the analysis we have performed, we explain them in detail as well as crisp under the result section under each heading. Okay, so that's what I think clearly we can mention under the results. So coming to the discussion, I think discussion I no need to explain because all of you may be knowing how to write the discussion for a research article. A similar fashion for systematic review meta-analysis also we are going to be write the discussion part, and we clearly mentioned like what we found from this article. I think that's what is going to be in the first paragraph. What additional thing we have done by doing the systematic review compared to the previous systematic review published in 2005. And also we mentioned what we found by conducting the subgroup analysis and all other extra analysis. By conducting that, what we understood from this systematic review. So we explained that in the discussion. And also maybe we can mention in detail about, I think we could not mention all these things in the introduction. So whatever you could not able to explain in the introduction, you can explain in the discussion, especially about we are speaking the association between statin and breast cancer. Okay, so is there any mechanism behind statins are causing or decreasing the breast cancer? Certainly there may be some articles which may be coming from animal studies or it may be coming from human studies. There may be some mechanisms existing behind the association between your intervention and the outcome. So you can take up those articles, even though those articles you did not include in the meta-analysis directly, but those articles you can include them in the discussion part. So by taking some information from those articles which are relevant for your hypothesis. So we should not keep any other information which you feel the information from breast cancer, information from statins. I think that is not required here. In the discussion, we should be very specific in terms of the association. So no need to speak any articles separately on statin, no need to speak any articles separately on breast cancer. So you need to mention here the information only which are conducted just to try to understand the impact of statin use on the breast cancer. And also we have mentioned about the strength of this current article. So certainly at the end of the discussion, we need to mention what are the various strengths of this current systematic review and meta-analysis. And also we should not restrict with only the strengths. Obviously, as Richard mentioned, no one can conduct a perfect systematic review meta-analysis. Certainly there will be some limitations, and all those limitations we should accept and we should clearly mention under the limitation section. Okay, so it is not that always anyone will have a strength, so there will be some limitations, and those things we need to mention clearly in the manuscript. And finally, we have given the conclusion. So the conclusion is the findings of this meta-analysis using observational studies do not support the hypothesis that statin use reduce the risk of breast cancer. So this was our hypothesis for conducting the study. Statins are going to be reduce the risk of breast cancer, and by doing this, we have disproved this by conducting this meta-analysis and systematic review. So we do not get enough evidence saying that statins are reducing the risk of breast cancer. So that's what we mentioned in the discussion. Hope it is very clear for you what we need to mention in the manuscript of a systematic review and meta-analysis. And the remaining things are going to be based on the type of the journal what you are going to be choose. For example, you can mention about the author contribution. Author contributions, usually I think nowadays all the journals are asking in terms of systematic review, what we need to mention is what is the contribution of each and every author in this systematic review, like who performed the search, who performed the data extraction, who performed the analysis. So we can mention clearly the first author, whatever the things he performed for the systematic review, and the second author, whatever he done for the systematic review. So we can explain certainly what each and every author contributed, how they contributed for the current systematic review and manuscript. Acknowledgement section, maybe we can mention if there is something specific to mention there for your interest. And then conflict of interest, I think every journal is going to be have now the conflict of interest that you can mention, and followed by all the references. So these references here is going to be the references of all the studies what you included in the meta-analysis, and also whatever the references you have taken for your introduction as well as a discussion. Okay, so all these references we are going to be mentioned in the article itself. I think one advantage for this a general systematic review and meta-analysis is we can just mention only the studies which are included, right? And we can mention the references of only those studies which were included in this particular systematic review. But in case of Cochrane systematic review, sometimes it is not sometimes. I think every time we need to mention even the articles which we have excluded. Also, you may be mentioning that you have excluded some of the articles because you feel that no, they are not having sufficient information which you require for your meta-analysis. And by mentioning that, we need to give the reference of each and every article which we excluded also in a Cochrane systematic review, so that anyone can understand. Maybe when you send to the reviewer got one particular article, but you have excluded that particular article in your systematic review. So if you go and see the reference section of yours where you mention excluded studies and with the reason, so that it will be very clear to the reviewer, so that he can understand why you have excluded that particular study in your systematic review. So that's what about the references. And coming to the figures, it is once again based on the journal format. Either you can include the figures within this main document, or maybe you are going to provide them separately. Okay, so only figures we have included in this document, and the tables we have given separately. So this is a figure, as I mentioned, figure 1 is going to be the flow chart. So always the figure 1 is going to be the flow chart, a Prisma flow chart we can call it as, where we are going to be explain how many citations we got initially and how many we have excluded based on various reasons. And apart from that, how many full text we have reviewed. And as I said initially, we have also gone through the websites of these organizations to find out any abstracts are present on this association. So after going through this American Society of Clinical Oncology, we got 2 abstracts that I mentioned here. And even after reading the 35 full text articles, we felt that there are 13 more articles which are not relevant. We got to know after reading the full text, we felt that they are not relevant. So we mentioned that we have excluded them by giving the reasons once again. And then finally, the 24 studies are included for both the systematic review and meta-analysis. So that's a flowchart we are going to be have, the Prisma flowchart we are going to be have as a figure 1 in most of the things. And this is what the funnel plot, I think, explained by the Richard already. We are going to be have, and we are going to be have the forest plot here, and this is the forest plot we are going to be explained within the manuscript. And so in the forest plot, no, there's a clear-cut description we have given. So another description we clearly mention, we have taken the relative risk and confidence intervals and out of 24 studies, and also we have given some of the other information as well, which we feel it's more important to keep under the description. So as much as possible, you can give all the information so it will be very clear for the audience. And this is the particular forest plot. I'm sure that you feel there's a difference between this forest plot and the forest plot what you have seen in the review manager, because this one we have taken from the Stata. So it looks like this, but it may be different than what we get from the review manager. And you can see the combined estimate, or n is equal to 21 here. I think there are some differences between number of studies what we included. We included 24 studies, but here for this forest plot we have included only 21. So because out of 24, only 21 are having some information on this association, and that's the reason we have included only the 21. We need to mention that very clearly. That's about the forest plot in detailed information. And always these descriptions are going to be very important. I think if you explain as much as possible in detail, so that it will be very clear for the reviewers, and the chance of acceptance is going to be much better. So that's what there in my main document. I think starting from the title till the figures, right? And as I mentioned, no, we have given for this journal, we have given tables separately. I'll show you the tables one by one. We have 4 tables here. I'll just share my screen once again. Please be with me. So this is the table 1. In the table 1, we have just included some studies which are included in the meta-analysis. Like whatever the 24 studies we have included, we have just given some basic information about all the studies in the table 1. And that's also once again is going to be the standard, like the standard table is going to be like whatever the information we extracted into the Excel sheet. Everything we cannot keep in the table here. In that, whatever the information you feel which is very important to explain to the audience, maybe that information we can keep it in the table, like author and year which is published, and the study period when they conducted, how many number of patients they have included, in that how many are having this breast cancer, and the description of exposure and reference. Like, so if you cannot explain everything in the table because you feel that there's lots of information to explain in the table, so what you can do is as a standard format, what you can do is you can give some codings here, and those codings you can clearly explain at the bottom of the table as a footnotes. You can explain in detail about all this. I think this is going to be impress the reviewers when you have a clear cut. That's what I suggest maybe all of you, when you have a clear cut legends at the end of the table or at the end of the figure, and that's going to be impress the reviewer. So reviewer feel that okay, you have done everything perfectly. I think the moment he sees the tables and figures, it should be very clear so that he should not have any other thoughts saying that it is not written well. Okay, it should be in that format. I think you're going to be get the acceptance very easily. And also we mentioned about number of variables adjusted, how many variables have adjusted, and we have given the coding here. You can see how much time we could have taken here to give the coding for each and every variable they have adjusted, and all these codings we have explained very clearly here, like what is meant by 1, age, 2 is use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So like this, we have coded each and every confounding variable they have adjusted, and then we have given that information in the table. So if you feel any time you cannot give enough information in the table, better you can go with the codings, and all those codings you can explain in detailed under the table as a legends. That's about the table 1. And coming to the table 2. So coming to the table 2, this is the table 2, studies evaluating the association between the long-term statin use and risk of breast cancer. As I mentioned, out of 24, there are 10 studies which are having some information on the long-term statin use and risk of breast cancer. And those are the studies here. And I have just mentioned what is the relative risk, 95% confidence interval, and the breast cancer cases are there. So what is mean by long-term? So as I mentioned, each and every information what we're getting from different articles may not be the same. So some article they mention long term as 5 years, some article they mention long term as 3 years, right? So I have mentioned very clearly here so that people we can understand what is meant by the long term. It is not same in all the articles. So you can see some article they mention long term as 10 years. So if you feel there's something difference, you need to explain them. You need to explain that very clearly to the audience and reviewers. So you can mention all those things in the table very clearly. And that's about the table. And this is also very important practice. If you give any the short forms of any terminologies what you're using in the table, it's always better to explain them under the legends. RR means relative risk, so don't leave it. So RR means relative risk, everyone knows about it, reviewers knows about it, and maybe some of the audience who are reading maybe knows about it, but still we need to mention them under the legends. So don't leave anything for the audience. You just explain everything very clearly, everything in the manuscript itself. So it is going to be useful for anyone, any person. And coming to the table 3. And this is the table 3 where the studies are evaluating the association between the statin use and risk of breast cancer. There are only 2 studies which are having some information on out of 24 studies. Once again, 2 studies are having the information on statin use and risk of breast cancer reoccurrence. It's a reoccurrence and how it's going to be useful. And that's what we got to know here. And these are the 2 studies and their 95% confidence intervals. That's what we have done here. And that's about the table 3. And coming to the last table, the very important table, that is table 4. So this is a table 4. It's a main analysis, everything explained in the table 4, a very in detailed table. You can see, there are lots of values here. I think nothing to bother because all those things we understood already. I think I've shown you this table even yesterday in the article as well, in my presentation as well, where we have included 24 studies, and this is what the overall analysis we got: 0.99 and 95% confidence interval 0.94 to 1.04, and this is the Q value of the Cochrane Q test, and for the same thing it's a P value, and this is the I-square value. 57% is a I-square value. And for publication bias, we have 2 tests mainly: Beck's test and Egger's test. And those values we have mentioned here. These are P values of the Beck test and Egger's test, and the interpretation is going to be same. So whenever you have P value of more than 0.1, if you can say that there is no publication bias. Whenever it is less than 0.1, we can say there is a publication bias. So that's the main analysis, and after that we have performed some subgroup analysis based on the study design. I think I explained this very clearly yesterday. So we have divided all the 24 into 2 different groups based on the study design, and then we have conducted the meta-analysis once again. So for 13 cohort studies, we got this result: 1.01 is a pooled effect, and 95% confidence interval is 0.98 to 1.04. And it's found to be non-significant. And for case control studies, 11 separately we have conducted meta-analysis where we got 0.95 and confidence interval is 0.84 to 1.08. Once again, it is found to be not significant. And for those 2 analyses, we have once again have the information on test for heterogeneity as well as a publication bias. And this P interaction I explained once again clearly yesterday. The P interaction we got is 0.35. It's like a normal standard P value of any statistics. The cutoff is going to be 0.05. Because it is more than 0.05, we can say that there is no significant difference identified between the pooled result of cohort studies with the pooled results of case control studies. So we have 2 pooled results here. Just try to understand, is there any significant difference between these 2 results? We are going to perform the P interaction. And based on this, we understood that there is no difference between these 2 results. So like that, we have many other subgroup analysis. And this is the result about the long-term statin use. There are 10 studies which are having the information on the long-term statin use. And once again, we found to be there is no significant association because relative risk, pooled relative risk is 1.03, and the confidence interval is 0.96 to 1.11. So here once again we got to know that even the people are using statins for a longer time, maybe like 5 years or 10 years, even they're not having any association with the breast cancer. That's what we understand. I think this may be one of the best explanation for you. Usually people will feel that when you get the no association or the negative association, the chance of getting the publication is going to be difficult. But I think this is one of the best example to say that that's not true always. This is a study where we got no association for almost all the outcomes, but still when we send this publication, it got accepted first time itself in one of the very good journal, that is a breast cancer research and treatment by the Springer, and that time itself in 2012 itself it was having a impact factor of 4.5 something. And you can see the authors, the two authors I mentioned here, and I think that's one more belief everyone will have. As an authors, we need to have the people who are the experts, or maybe some of the seniors should be there in the manuscript to get an acceptance. But you can see the two authors what I mentioned here is only myself and one of my friend. That time we are the classmates. We were even pursuing our M.Pharmacy that time, and we tried, and we got succeeded, and it got published in a very good journal, and that was our first article in fact. So that's a very good memory for us always to have such a publication, very good publication. And this is a one more result for reoccurrence of breast cancer, where we have only 2 studies. I think this is the only one area where we got some association. The pooled effect is 0.53 and the confidence interval 0.37 to 0.76. So here you can see there is an association. Because it is less than 1, we can say that there is a decreasing in the risk of getting the breast cancer reoccurrence when the people are using the statin. And we found that this value is significant because the confidence interval lower limit also less than 1 and upper limit also less than 1. So we got to know that it's significant, and you can see that there's a star mark here, and that star mark we have explained very clearly here. That means it is statistically significant for inverse association between the statin use and breast cancer reoccurrence. So remaining all of them are, there is no star mark because there are not having any associations. And this is the one which is having the association. That's why we clearly explained that there is an association between the statin use and risk of breast cancer reoccurrence. And remaining whatever the symbols we have used, I think it's always better to you can use some symbols like this, and those symbols maybe you can explain very clearly under the table legends. So that's going to be the very good practice at any point of time. If you're writing any manuscript, having the symbols and explaining those symbols at the down, and if you feel maybe something which cannot the readers cannot understand easily, you can give a symbol and then you can explain them in detail under the legends. So that's going to be the good practice always. May not be only for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. You can have that practice even for any article what you're writing. Explain everything very clearly under the legends of the tables. So I think it's going to be impress the reviewers as well as the audience always. So I think with that I can maybe conclude from my side. That's what I thought I can explain to you here in the last session. Once you do everything, how we are going to be how we are going to be write a manuscript and how we are going to be communicated. So the communication I'm not explaining in detail here because the communication is once again depends. Once you come out with a manuscript, so this one is a manuscript we have prepared, and after that what we have done is we don't know. While writing the manuscript, we don't have any clue to which journal we are going to be send it. Okay, once we write a complete manuscript, once we have everything ready with us, then I think the best method to choose a journal, I think that's what one of the question everyone is going to be have, how to choose a journal. I think the best method to choose a journal is going to be always, once you write the manuscript, certainly you are going to be have the good number of references in your article, right? And go to the references and then see where most of these kind of articles got published in which journal. Okay, I think that's going to be give very good clue that okay, this manuscript may be suitable for this particular journal because most of these kind of journals are already published. That's why you have taken those articles as your references. I think you don't need to ask anyone which may be the best journal for my article. No one can tell you that because that comes based on the experience, and also no one can tell you that you send it to this journal, it is going to be accepted straight away. That's not going to be happen once again. That depends. if it is not accepted, you should have an alternative journal with you and then try to communicate to that. So it's going to be, I think, I don't need to explain to the seniors, but no, at least the youngsters who joined here, especially the students, they will feel that maybe once it is rejected, I think they don't going to work once again on that manuscript, right? So it is not a one-time settlement. So you need to work on that continuously. Still, your manuscript is going to be published. Okay, it's going to be take that much time. You should have that much patience to get a good manuscript, a good article on your name. And I think what are the satisfaction you're going to be get out of it after publishing it in a good journal, which is having the highest impact factor. And after seeing your name in the PubMed, I think that's what happened with us also in 2012. I think that's the first time when you see your name in the PubMed, that's going to be the memorable event you are not going to be forget in your lifetime. Okay, so to get that memories, to have that memories, certainly you need to work hard, and then only you're going to be get those publications. So sorry if I'm giving some class for the senior people who are attending here, but that's what my intention to say to the youngsters whenever they want to make any publications out of it. I think that's what from my side. I think Vasu ma'am, you are here. I feel.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you for, I think, being with me throughout the day, as even yesterday and today. Ma'am, you could have seen some comments from the Q&A box, or maybe apart from any other, whatever I did not maybe cover here, you can have few words, ma'am. I think it's going to be useful.
Let me just think. Was this thing covered, because I had to keep moving in and out a bit? The Prospero part has been covered. Registering a review in Prospero.
You can just explain that, ma'am, once again. No issue.
So I don't know too much about it, but I just know that non-Cochrane reviews, people do tend to register them on Prospero, and that seems to have a better thing. So if anyone else can add something on that, it might be good. I don't know too much about it.
Yeah, I think that may be one of the questions everyone will have always. Either we need to publish our review first of all, publish our protocol first of all for a systematic review.
Correct.
So yeah, so publishing, I think one website we have is a Prospero, one organization from York University. It's a very important organization. And one thing for sure is publishing a protocol is not compulsory. For any systematic reviews, it is not compulsory. That is your wish. Maybe if you want to say to the public that you are working on particular systematic review. Why? Because you should not have any competition for you. If you want to prevent, maybe anyone is coming out with the same publication by the time you go on to the journal, right? So if you want to prevent that, usually I think whenever the standard procedure is going to be, whenever we want to start any systematic review, usually we'll go and check in the Prospero just to understand that are there any similar studies are going on already, so that you can save so much of your time. Without checking that, if you start writing the review and almost you spend 6 months of time, and by the time you come out with outcome, already there is one recent article published on that same aspect. Acceptance of this is going to be very difficult, because always when you send the systematic review to any journal, they are going to be checked, are there any similar articles already existing? If they feel that your article is not adding any value of that article apart from that, and getting the acceptance is going to be difficult once again. So that's what is going to be happen. And it's not mandatory, but if you publish it in a Prospero, that's going to be very good. And when you are sending a manuscript, you can even have that number in the manuscript. So that's going to be added some value while reviewing the manuscript, having the Prospero number.
So it's definitely a good practice, because if, as you rightly said, more than competition, I would say that you've got to focus on the fact of not wasting time. If somebody else is doing it, you either do something else or collaborate with them, you get a better publication. That kind of a thing. Since systematic reviews always are about collaboration, nothing like collaborating with them and trying to do that kind of a thing.
Yes.
So, and duplication is a complete waste, since systematic reviews take quite some time. So, and maybe, yes, while you were talking in the morning with Richard, I was just remembering one interesting thing that Dr. Pratap Talian said in one of the Cochrane Center training programs, that there are people in the world who are such experts, they collaborate with people in other parts of the world, so that when they do the screening of studies, according to time zone, so in my working hours, I do 50 studies. then in my night time, I pass on to somebody else to do the next 50, and that way they finish a review much faster. So
Yes, ma'am.
those are it's one more advantage of collaboration over the world.
Exactly.
Right. And those
That's what-
accesses. Plus, one more thing I remembered was this one, AIIMS Delhi, and I think AIIMS Rishikesh, I'm not sure, but AIIMS Delhi and PGI Chandigarh have access to Embase and lots more resources. In our country, if this can gradually increase, we don't need to look at other collaborators only for access. We should really look at other collaborators more for expertise, but for access, we should really start building in within the country itself, that kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, obviously. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for that, adding that content. So I'm sure that all audience who are attending here have a fruitful 2 days workshop. Having a workshop online is something different. I think we done our best to give you the workshop experience even through online by having a demonstration session. I don't know how I got that thought of having the demonstrations, but I felt it worked out very well. Especially by the demonstration given by Vasumati ma'am and today morning research. I think those are going to be ultimate. You're not going to be get anywhere. So I'm sure that all the participants got a very good understanding and benefit out of this 2 days workshop. And I think I can see there are some questions in the chat box. I'll try to answer those meanwhile. And we are not going to have any question and answer session once again separately, because I answered almost all the questions, even sitting in front of system yesterday. Almost all the questions I have already answered. And if there are some any new questions, maybe I'll answer now, so that we can finish the session very faster. So what I request from all the audience who are here now is, you can see a form here. I just added the form. Please fill the feedback form. So it's going to be very useful for us to conduct future events, and write anything what you feel, because it's an online one. Please don't expect many things, because it's an online one. There may be some technical difficulties. Please don't bother for all those, because it is going to be completely different than what you can expect when you come personally, right? So when you come personally, you can expect many things, but online certainly there will be some issues. Keep in mind all those, and try to give your real feedback, so that it's going to be very much useful for us. So before leaving, please fill the feedback form, which I have attached here in the Google form. It is not going to take enough time. Only five questions are there, and that too you need to just click on that. So I'm sure it is not going to take even a minute time. So fill that form and give it to us, so that we'll take it up, all the comments, and then we will try to improve the further events. So with that, maybe I can conclude from my side. And before leaving, please fill the form. And if you have anything, please write a mail to us. And you have all the contacts of all the speakers, and maybe you can even contact them. And I was getting the mails, sir, we are going to get the PPTs of the presenters. So I'm assuring that you're going to get all the PPTs of all the speakers in a PDF format. And after that, whatever the recordings we're having, maybe we'll try to convert into a better way. And then maybe we can keep it in a YouTube channel of our NIPER Guwahati, and then give you the link for your further reference. Maybe whenever you feel you need to have go through that, you can certainly go through those videos. So that will be available once again. And the certificate, you'll get it soon. So give me some 10 days time minimum. So because there are lots of participants I need to send. So give me minimum 10 days time. Still, if you're not getting, then maybe you can try to message me. But surely I'll assure you that you'll get the certificate as well, e-certificate for all the participants who attended here. And also my sincere thanks once again from the organization of NIPER Guwahati to all the speakers who done an excellent job and accepted in a very less time. I think not even a week I called them. So they accepted readily to be available with us online. And I should more appreciate, it is not that they are there only for their session, and some of them they were there, and especially Vasumati ma'am, she was there all the 2 days completely with me. I don't think so any other people from the NIPER itself are there with me. So thank you so much, ma'am, for that, being with me and adding all the additions. And I'm sure the participants are benefited out of it. So, ma'am, last words, maybe if you would like to say anything for the participants, so that we can conclude the session.
Sure. Before I say to the participants, I think the effort you've taken is really something very interesting and novel, is what I would say. And it's quite a bold initiative, in fact, for systematic reviews in this thing. But what I appreciated was, in fact, after Richard's talk, I called him and we had a brief chat because it was long. We both felt it, that where you've said it's an awareness and you've given a good amount of detail in each. Because everybody has to, we were just discussing about now suddenly everyone wants to do systematic reviews, and we are not something you can do as easily as the case report or something like that. It's much more than that. So that was something I appreciated from your side and NIPER's side, that was done very well. For the audience, I would once again probably just emphasize what I said yesterday. And maybe before that, I will echo what you said, which was that yes, I saw a lot of remarks about technical problems, but if so many are trying to access, all of us are learning because we've all not done this before. So technical stuff is, and you've assured them that you will do your best to provide them with recordings or whatever. That's how much that can be done. And maybe you've got to plan for more such events later. But to the audience, otherwise, I will just more or less repeat what I said yesterday, that if this topic does not interest you to go ahead, perfectly all right, but you've at least learned what it is all about. That's good enough. If it interests you, go ahead with the idea of writing full reviews or explore the option of becoming very good at one. Because, for example, for one systematic review, actually for a guideline where they did a systematic review first, I was asked by a doctor friend to take up the job of selecting studies. And I said, I've never done this before. He said, no, one researcher will guide you, but he doesn't have the time to do it. And this person was from somewhere in Europe, I forget where, but he was an excellent guide and I learned how to do that. For an orthopedics topic, I'm not even a doctor, forget orthopedic surgeon, but I really learned how to do that. So the avenues that are there for learning are great, and you never know when you can offer that as a consulting, and there are people ready to take it. So just explore all that, be very open to more learning is probably what I would say. So whether it's selecting studies or the writing part or the statistical part or the literature searching part or even duplicate management in a reference manager, I'm sure there are people, broadly there are two kinds of people, those who know about it and don't have time, and those who love it and want to do only that. So you could choose to do any such role, or you could choose to be a generalist and do overall systematic reviews, more of the writing. Just be open and explore your passions is what I would give as a message.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's what even I thought of informing to the audience as well. If you did not understand from this 2 days workshop how to write a systematic review also, don't bother. I'm sure at least you got some new concepts which are not going to be useful for you to write a systematic review, but certainly they're going to be useful for you somewhere further in your career. If you know literature search, I think how to do it, it is going to be useful for you for any of your projects, whatever you are going to be doing. If you know how to extract the data, how to read the article, I think you can understand better how to read and how to interpret the results, right? And maybe morning Richard's explanation, okay, you don't know how to use a Reviman, but at least you understand what is relative risk, what is odds ratio, what is confidence interval, and other basic analysis, you got it. Right, and what I shown you in the manuscript, let it be, it is not a systematic review, but I shown you maybe some of the basic things how to write a manuscript. At least you got to know how a manuscript can be. May not be a systematic review, any other manuscript. So I feel that it's moreover, even though the name says systematic review meta-analysis, but through this workshop, I'm sure that you got some other understandings as well, which are going to be useful very much in our regular practice as well. Okay, in our research career. I'm sure all of us are in research, and maybe all of us are the professionals. Somewhere in the professional career, certainly it's going to be very much useful for us. All those things, whatever we've done, I'll assure you that. So please be in touch with us. If you need any other help from us, maybe please mail us. So we'll try to respond as soon as possible for that. And we look forward for your presence maybe in the future workshops or conferences as well. It is completely, I think whatever Vasumati ma'am is doing and whatever we are doing, it is completely for our satisfaction, saying that no, we have spreaded whatever the concept we are having with us, right? So there is no monetary benefits we are getting out of it. Even we are spending more time and energy to conduct all these workshops. It's only to get satisfaction that no, we have done something better for the society. So that's our main motto. So thank you so much, all the attendees joined here for today, and have a good weekend. Thank you. Please fill the feedback form before leaving the event. So it will be very much useful for us. Thank you, everyone. I'm signing off. Thank you, Ma'am. Thank you, Vasumati.
Thank you.